Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for new stories from YellowCat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Divorce lawyers of Reddit. What's the best kept secret couples have kept from one another? Not a lawyer, but my husband's uncle, they're close to the same age, was going through a divorce. His wife had just packed up her stuff and their kids and moved out one day while he was at work. Come to find out, a few weeks before she left, she'd won a $5,000 a week for life lottery ticket and thought she could divorce him without splitting her winnings. That didn't work out very well for her. Not a lawyer, but a bartender, and this ends in divorce. Married couple, let's say their names are Joe and Susan, are regulars at my bar. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they come in with each other. They are very touchy-feely and often are making out with each other while they drink some beers. Monday and Tuesday, Susan comes in with an always-changing cast of men and is very touchy-feely on them making out, etc. Wednesday and Thursday, Joe comes in with an ever-changing cast of ladies and is very touchy-feely on them making out, etc. I figure that they must be in an open relationship in their marriage. I don't really care. And then proceed to let the next 7 years behind the bar wash over me. Then Susan comes in and tells me that she is divorcing Joe because he is a piece of S who cheated on her. I act surprised and console her, and in doing such, she explains that she is very virtuous and has never cheated on Joe or anyone else. A while later, I see Joe at another bar, and he explains to me that Susan is divorcing him, but he is going to win the divorce. Is there a win in divorce? I don't know. Because he had a private detective follow her, and she is a cheating bee. I act surprised, console Joe, and in doing such, he explains that he is a virtuous person and has never cheated on Susan or anyone else. I shortly after stopped working at that bar and grew a beard so less people would recognize me when I go out. Not a lawyer, but I found out about a best-kept secret deal. A married couple got their gas utility account turned on at their house back in 1972, but the gas company never finished the paperwork properly and they were never billed. They got free gas service forever because their account was properly on, but the billing was never set up. Later, they divorce and the husband gets the house with the free gas service. The gas company finally caught the problem sometime around 2014. The company could legally backbill the customer for only a limited time, amounting to a few years of use, but the guy told the company to send the bill to his ex-wife. There was a clause in the divorce settlement that said that if the gas company ever was notified or discovered the free gas deal, the ex-wife would have to pay any past bill payments. The arrangement was made so that the wife could never alert the company to their error without having to pay herself. What was amazing was that 2 lawyers and the judge signed off on this while fully knowing that the guy was getting away with it. Not a lawyer, but part of my previous job was reviewing the details of divorce decrees for people trying to get money to start businesses. They are usually pretty generic, especially in no-fault states. About 10 years ago, I get this one where it was an at-fault state at the time of the divorce, and it laid out the whole backstory. The husband was a physician and the wife was a hairstylist. The husband lied about having a long-term disease to the wife and her family. He used this lie to leave his job and stay home for years while the wife took on multiple jobs and tried to support him on her income alone. They found out he was lying and she filed for divorce. He was ordered by the judge to immediately seek employment as a doctor and pay the wife alimony based on his theoretical salary. I got a buddy who practices divorce law and he told me this doozy. So this guy comes into his office saying he needed representation and my buddy, who was fresh from law school, was willing to take on any paying case. At this point, the guy states that he is the victim and his wife blindsided him with divorce paperwork less than a year into their marriage. I guess the dude's wife had some serious cash and would be flexing some muscle. After a few weeks, he gets a call from an arbitrator from the wife's attorney who set up a meeting and thinking that they were interested in settling in the best interest of the husband. The dude and my buddy show up and I guess things went completely sideways. Come to find out, the dude had a bunch of nasty secrets he failed to mention, which included 1. a nasty online pee habit that cost him a couple of decent jobs, two kids with another woman that he failed to mention to his wife about and was in the hole for back child support, 3, the biggest one that was the nail in the coffin. Wife suspects that the husband was cheating, so she checks his phone one night while he is sleeping. Guy was definitely talking to another woman, who happened to be the 15-year-old daughter of one of his ex-coworkers. These exchanges included lots of nudes. The wife was smart enough to get the explicit texts, but not the photos since it would have been distributing child pee. At this point, the husband goes pale white and begins to sweat, and the lawyer asks for a minute to speak to him. My buddy asks if any of these are true, and the dude is just stammering, clearly figuring out that he is screwed. My buddy tells him it is in best interest to just settle and not pursue his wanted settlement. After this is said and done, the guy ends up rolling over and admitting defeat. My buddy ended up hiring debt collectors because the dude refused to pay through normal means. Couple is getting divorced. Guy gets worried that she won't return the engagement ring, so he tells his attorney that he switched it for a fake without telling her. Attorney checks in with client a while later, who then asks her to stop proceeding because we're laughing again. Then she asks her client, "Did you tell her about the ring? Was she laughing then?" This other one, though. Guy doesn't want to break up with his girlfriend. She keeps nagging him about marriage, but he doesn't want to marry her. So he tells her they'll have a destination wedding on a tropical island with a local ceremony, and it will be very romantic. And they do. Except, he just hired some resort staff to pretend to officiate a marriage ceremony, and no marriage contract was ever drawn up. Guy dies years later. Wife finds out she was never married and is not in the will. But really, it's not the secrets, it's the mundane BS. Attorney gets a fax from his client's ex-wife's attorney. So-and-so promised to buy and build beds for the children for when they came over to visit one weekend, but he didn't and they had to sleep on couches. Please ensure that your client does XYZ. Okay, that's a valid complaint, but not one that needs to be communicated between two attorneys who charge $450 an hour. East Coast husband has a listed income of $1.5 million. Cheated on wife 10 times. Almost at the end of the divorce process, it was learned that husband had another family in Seattle, a different name, and another $14 million salary in tech. His vested stock options under the second identity were worth $214 million. How was he discovered living the double wife? Seattle wife posted a picture on Facebook and tagged him with his West Coast name. East Coast wife similarly posted a photograph of him. The facial recognition assigned him a possible name, his West Coast name. The two wives got in touch. But wait, there's more. He has a wife and family in the Czech Republic and moved there to avoid family court and is currently being pursued for extradition. Not a lawyer, but my parents divorced when I was born. Over the next 5 years, Dad proceeds to take Mom to court to pay less and less in child support. He had us for about 30 hours a week. School days were almost entirely on her. When I was about 12, he starts bringing her back to court. According to her, he was paying about $100 a month for the 4 of us. Finally, she got sick of it, had her lawyer look into his finances. His now deceased parents gave him $200,000 for our college educations, he put it into stocks, and had $40,000 left. Judge heard this, case ended. He got that money roughly in 1985 before we were born and was forced to take out the remainder and put it in a savings account by the judge in 2010, roughly? Don't know if this counts, and I'm not a lawyer. Buddy of mine got divorced. He has a contracting business and was doing quite well. During the divorce proceedings, they decided to sell the business and divide the proceeds. They sold it for over $2 million. She got 60% in lieu of alimony. Well, the selling of the business triggered a tax audit, and when all was said and done, they owed over $700,000 in back taxes and penalties. So now we have a $700,000 debt, and back to court they go. She is claiming it was his business, so he should pay all the debt. He is claiming since she took 60% off the business, she should take 60% off the debt. Well, the judge agreed with him. She ended up with 60% of the debt, and unfortunately for her, she had pretty much spent all the proceeds from the divorce and now owes $420,000 to the government plus accumulating interest. He had used the money he got from the divorce to start a new business and paid his debt off right away. I'm an attorney. A few years back, I practiced primarily as a financial consultant specializing in forensic accounting. I was the expert the attorneys would hire to compile income and financial resources and then testify in court. I worked within an accounting firm who had a sports agent as a client. I worked on a high-profile divorce case for them, working with attorneys in 2 states on the husband's case. In any city, if you do the high-end divorce cases as an expert witness, you end up working with only a few select attorneys or law firms. As a person who has worked both sides of a case, you figure out that there is a system of things. My post is not so much about the client's secret in this case, it's more about how I broke the system of things in this case. Let's get something straight. In a perfect world, the husband and wife could sit down on their own and knock out a reasonable settlement. If necessary, they could use an advisor or a mediator. The bigger cases may have valuation issues regarding closely held stock, stock options, professional goodwill, etc. But not so fast there, grasshopper. Tax must be paid, the system must be greased, the professionals need paid. The client's interests aren't in perfect alignment with the professionals. Billable hours must be obtained. Sure, the attorneys on both sides know each other and could work towards a smooth resolution. That's not going to happen. It is more advantageous to the law firms to communicate through depositions, summons, pleadings, etc. My fees are dependent on the case going forward. If the case settles, I ordinarily receive funds representing the time I incurred. I never had an issue with that. This was not my only source of income. Some cases dragged on for years with a trail of billable attorney hours. So that brings us to the case in question. I had traveled across the country to meet with my client Mr. X and his attorneys. So we sat in the conference room high above the city discussing the issues. Mr. X was good man as far as I knew. Nothing too crazy had happened in the case. In any event, it came time for lunch. Mr. X passed as he didn't feel like interacting with fans. The attorneys left to eat and I stepped out to make calls on my other cases. I came back rather quickly. There I sat with Mr. X. After some deliberation, he looked at me and said, "You're not an attorney, you're my valuation expert. You've seen a lot of cases. What should I do?" Now, here was a question I had been hopeful would never be asked of me. Christ, I was going to be truthful. You've asked me a direct question. You are the one who engaged me. I would be grateful if you would keep my advice between us. If you and your wife can generally agree upon what the marital assets are worth and how they can be split, work the details out and have a law firm write up an agreement. At the end of the day, your wife is the mother of your children and those children need you two to work together. Any funds you use to pay professional fees are better spent on you and your family. He thought about it rather quickly, grabbed a spreadsheet I had prepared, asked a couple questions, and we both talked over a proposed number that would work for him and hopefully his wife. The spreadsheet went away, the attorneys returned, blah blah blah, and I flew home. A week later, Mr. X called to say the case settled. All good in the neighborhood. I felt better about this case more than any other. I was a child of divorce. If the fight can be stopped, so be it. The law firms in question never did learn of our conversation. It would have been uncomfortable as it stopped the billing train. Thank you for watching. Guys, thank you for all the support and the likes. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. See you next time.